for inviting me to be a part of your day today. I am here for pastoral support and just kind of settle your guys' hearts and minds as you hear this informational meeting today. Also, I'm a runner for you guys. So what I understand, it was very hard to hear the questions, the comments from last 2 weeks ago, informational meeting. So I just ask if you guys, before you say anything or share anything, wait till I get you a mic, which I'll move really quickly. Sue and I will. And we're also taking notes. So please announce your name so we can give the right credit, the right thoughts and ideas and suggestions. And also so those who aren't present but are attending via video can hear who's sharing, okay? So like every meeting, let us take a moment, center our hearts and minds, and let us say a quick prayer. Gracious God, continue to be present with this community, lift them up, sustain them, and continue to grace them with not only your words, but with your spirit as they continue to imagine what it means to do ministry and to go forth in your world with love and grace. Lord, thank you for blessing Trinity Lutheran and all of its gifts that they have to share. In your name we pray. Amen. And so now, it's off to you, Lance.
All right, thank you. Everyone, good morning to everybody. For those who don't know, my name is Lance Olson, and I am the Trinity Treasurer. Myself and my wife have shared those duties here. So today what we want to do and what I would like to stress with everybody here today is we would like to have this informational meeting, right? So what does that mean? It means we're not voting on anything, okay? As you can look through some packets that have been sent out, there's some scenarios, some ideas out there. They're not voting on. They're nothing more than just to provide thought, right? And to provide direction on, some possible ideas that we could pursue. So nothing more than that right now. We're not working on, pursuing any specific idea, but we wanted to get this information out in front of everybody, in front of the congregation, and then give everybody time to kind of digest that, and then hopefully we can start moving forward with a plan of action from there. Okay. Any questions with that before I begin? Perfect. Okay. Daryl, if you can go to the next slide. So since we were putting this together, we wanted to kind of take advantage of this time and cover a couple of different topics, right? We want to kind of give you a financial update of where we sit as a congregation right now. We're basically halfway through the calendar year. We're almost halfway through our fiscal year because, again, our fiscal year starts February 1st, so kind of coming in there. We had some models that we wanted just to walk through, again, ideas. Nothing that we're voting on, nothing that we're taking action on immediately, but just nothing more than ideas to just provide some thought-provoking experiences with us. Then we wanted to kind of talk through our basement space that we have downstairs. We also wanted to talk about kind of the future of Trinity Lutheran Church. Right now we're in the process of a call. We have not necessarily had a lot of activity at the moment, but the committee is working very hard about it, so we wanted to bring everybody up to speed with where that is at. And then we also wanted just to talk about upcoming Hammond Heartland Days, as that's a great opportunity to continue to promote Trinity Lutheran Church. So, okay. If you want to go to the next slide, Daryl. Okay. So, let's talk about where we are currently. If you look at this and you look at the chart on the left, you're going to see kind of our expenses and our income by month, right? And again, when this was developed, we're not quite through June, so we don't have the end of June numbers. So we have 4 months to kind of show where we're at: February, March, April, and May. What you should take away from this when you're looking at this is there isn't necessarily a great pattern, right? There's a lot of variance in what we have for as far as income coming in versus expenses that we're paying going out. And so as the year progresses, it gets to be a little bit of a challenge, right? You put together a budget, you say, here's where we think we're going to have money coming in, here's where we think we're going to have our expenses, and we're relatively pretty good with that, but I would say nonetheless, it's still, there are always those items that maybe come up, something that might have to be done with the church on the properties or whatever the case may be, that we have, maybe, I don't want to use the term unforeseen because we put those expenses in to the budget. It's just maybe they came up earlier in the year than we had planned type of thing. So anyways, chart on the left, nothing more than just to show you kind of like how variable it is, right? How it varies. Now, what I'd like you to do is focus on the chart on the right, because this shows kind of, it's additive, right? It's every month our expenses and our income, right? So as you walk through to May, you see that our expenses are now taking over our income at this point in time, right? And roughly it's about $2,000 of that we have expenses, more expenses than we do income. And so if you kind of take out that monthly average, and you look at our monthly average income of about $14,968 versus expenses of $15,402, right? These are averages, right? Just trying to blend this out and get a feel for where we are with things. So that's where we've sat up to this point, right? Up through May. And an important point, and this is a point that was made during our annual meeting, is that May would be the last month that we would have SCC rent, right? So SCC rent was roughly $1,946 or something like that, I believe it was. Yeah, I believe it was about $1,946. So that's no longer here, right? The school district has opted to go a different direction. They are no longer renting that basement. This was something that we've known and that we have kind of communicated out to the congregation. This was coming for a while, but now it's upon us at this point in time, right? We're up against that reality. So I would take a moment now here to say that, we've been very blessed to have that. It's really done, Trinity well as we progress through the years. It's not like this good or bad thing. It's just a thing. It's kind of the natural progression, right? And so now we as a congregation need to work with this and understand it and then move forward with the idea that we need to make up the difference of that, because that's income that we actually really depend on. So if you look, there's I have a comment there that says our average monthly income without the SCC rent is then at $13,363, right? So if I were to round things, right, let's round up and round down and try to think, okay, where do we need to be throughout the rest of the year, right, to make up this deficit? And if you round the 15,402 and you just call it 16, so we round conservatively high on what our expenses are, and we look at the income as 13,300, right, for what income we're bringing in. We now have a deficit that we need to make up of about $2,700 a month, give or take, right? And that, I'm trying to give that number, you could argue with me, it's a little high, it's a little inflated. Again, if you look at our expenses versus our income versus where we want to be a financially maybe healthy congregation, $2,700 is not that far off, an increase of $2,700 a month. So that's kind of what our shortfall is, right? That means $2,700 more dollars a month we need to bring in than we are currently doing today, right? Putting that into perspective, it's roughly about 17% increase, right, of what we're doing. So before I go on and talk through, what this path forward for us may look like in a couple of scenarios, does anybody have questions with this? Okay. As a check-in question to the congregation, how many, by maybe just a show of hands, how many are surprised by this? Okay, great. I mean, it's good. So Yes, this is a situation that we as a congregation have to deal with, right? It's real, but it's not insurmountable by any means, right? So, anyways, that's where we sit right now today as we move into July. So, Daryl, if you could go down, because I would like to talk about like some just possible, I call them models, right? Some really simple models. They're on this page here. You guys all have that. I know that's very hard to read. Hopefully, the pieces of paper in front of you will kind of be able to lay that out. Again, I really want to stress, not anything that we're taking a vote on. Just thought-provoking ideas is all this is, right? So what does this look like as we try to get that $2,700, right? Or attain that $2,700 goal, right? So if we look at the model on the left side, and you say that first column is 13,300, that's currently what we're bringing in, right? Then you look at that far right column and you see 16,000, that's kind of our goal, right? That's where we want to get to, right? So how can you get there? So if you look at, I put rental income, if we find a renter for the basement and we say we rent the basement out for $1,600 a month for whatever that purpose could be, then we would need the congregation to increase their giving by $1,100 a month. And if you look at that at the bottom, then we're asking the congregation to increase their giving by 7%, right? If you give $100 a month, we're asking you to give $107 a month, that type of thing, right? I think that's fairly doable. The challenge is we have to get a renter for the basement. And if you ask me where I came up with the $1,600, when we rented the basement out to Trinity, it was a 10-month lease. So they paid us $1,900 a month for 10 months. So if you take that and you divide it by 12, it comes to roughly $1,600. So the $1,600 is kind of making up for that shortfall loss in the rental. So that's how I came to that $1,600. Any questions with that model? Okay. So then another, it's nothing more than a thought-provoking idea, is we have an endowment fund, right? So we have two funds. Everybody, we have a scholarship fund, and then we have an endowment fund, two separate accounts, okay? And so we could, and it would take work, right? We can't just do it now. It would take some reaching out to members of that have worked with the endowment fund in the past. We would have to have a congregational vote, all of that, right? Like we wouldn't necessarily be able just to turn this on. So again, just a thought-provoking idea. But if we used the endowment fund as a short-term fix, let's say for the next 6 to 12 months while we worked through trying to gain our, find ways to get that $2,700 shortfall back. If we use the endowment fund to make our mortgage payment, which our mortgage payment is $2,467 a month. So if we use the endowment fund to make that monthly payment, then we would only be looking for an increase of $233 of giving a month, right? So nothing more than some thought-provoking ideas, and maybe I'll just take a moment here to pause to see if anybody has any questions or comments with things as we look through that. Good. Thank you.
Lance, can you please share what the dollar amount is in that endowment fund right now?
Yes. So the amount in the endowment fund right now today is $132,000, roughly, give or take, hundreds of dollars. Question?
How much was, Bill Jones, how much is the endowment fund we started with?
So the question is, how much was the endowment fund that we started with? I would have to go back and look. It was a lot less than $132,000. Like, in my mind, 70 is what comes to my mind, but I'd have to go back and look.
How much is left on the mortgage?
Yes. Roughly, I think what we have left on the mortgage is $152,000 at 3.875% interest. Betty?
Betty Jacobson. Isn't the taking the money out of the endowment fund kind of getting the whatever congregation off the hook of paying the additional dollars? And if we do that for, like, let's say a year, doesn't that, like, everybody thinks that cushion is there and so they don't need to increase their giving? So I guess I would like to propose, that we really think highly on, people increasing their giving rather than, using the endowment fund as a last, resort type thing, but, truly in our minds and hearts, look towards, people helping with, keeping the church going.
Yeah, so it's a great question, or a great comment. The comment was, if we went the route of the endowment fund, is this going to just kind of give us that false sense of security and we won't really have the true action we need to fix the problem? And the answer to that is yes, that's a very accurate statement, right? And so by all means, the healthier response to this situation is the fact that the congregation rallies, right? We give more, we find maybe a use for that basement. There's no doubt about it.
Brian Millar. I'm a member of the endowment committee. And one worry that I see with using that money is similar, is if that money just keeps on going, are we going to have to keep on, fronting that money for it if there's not an increase of giving or can't find somebody else to rent that basement? We have talked a lot about increasing what our endowment committee helps fund through the church, but that money would start to go quickly if it does keep on going to pay the mortgage.
Yep, most definitely. The amount in the endowment fund does not exceed the amount that we owe on the mortgage. So again, even think 5 years down the road, it's still kind of a short-term fix, just kind of moving things down. So there's no doubt about it. It's a very good point. Yes.
Marty Peterson. Lance, do you have a number, if you didn't do either of those monthly income models, how much giving would have to increase?
Yes. So Marty Peterson said, if we didn't do anything, right, and we just said, congregation, we need more money, that in a percentage, it's roughly about 17.5%. That $2,700 comes to roughly about 17.5%. So everybody, real quick math, right? If you give $100 a month, now you need to give $117.50 a month, right? That's what we'd be looking for. Very good question.
And Sue Frank, is that every member would increase that much?
So obviously we have, as in any organization, not even a church, right? You have your members that are the consistent givers, the consistent donors, and you have kind of the ones on the outside that aren't as consistent, then you have the ones further out, right? So when I make that comment, I am just talking about the individuals, the families that give today, in the cadence that they give today, that they would increase that cadence 17%. So whether they give weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever the case that is, whatever that amount is, we would be asking them to increase that 17.5%.
Daryl Frank, that figure, Lance, is that just a break-even figure? That's not giving us anything extra?
So Daryl's question was, does that figure break even or not, or does that give us extra? I put a little bit of that's a bit conservative to the good side, right, to the higher end side, because I didn't want to just like really cut that razor thin. I'll be honest, that does not take into account increases just in expenses throughout every year, right? So, another good point to your comment, Daryl, or your question is that, it's $2,700 now, right? 17.5% now. But as costs of anything go up, right? Electricity, water, sewer, heat, that's going to rise, right? 3% every year or 2% every year, just like we all experience. So a lot of times the challenge that you have is that, we go through this, we get it set there, and then people, in by no means are they trying to be neglectful or anything like that, but it just doesn't dawn all the time that, hey, the expenses are still increasing on the church as we move forward. But to your point, Daryl, $2,700 was a bit of a conservatively high number by maybe $200, $300 a month.
And then in addition to that increase, we also, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to be needing to ask for extra funds for parking lot fixes as well as air conditioning, correct?
Yep. So we have some larger expenses that are kind of on the cusp of the church right now, and that this does not partake in those. So we have a parking lot that's in desperate need of being resurfaced, right? Seal coated and then lines repainted. That's probably, and I'm just estimating based on numbers I think I've seen, would be about $13,000. And then we have an air conditioning unit that's out in the church secretary's office. I think we're working on that. Did we get that or did we get that board, Daryl? Okay. So now we have the air conditioning unit that actually feeds pastor's office and the secretary's office. That has kind of hit its extended life, and that's somewhere around $6,000 to fix that unit. So just so everybody knows, when the church was built and when we put the addition on, we didn't necessarily run the ductwork for electricity into those offices, so they have their own module air conditioning unit over there, not used by the rest of the church, and so that's why we have that situation that we do there.
Just to go on Betty's idea, what she was talking about, like what we're having is basically the fund is already being used up. The 32,000.
To date, the endowment committee controls that fund, and they decide where that money gets dispersed to, right? The actual purposes for those funds is for community outreach, kind of promoting Trinity out there, things like that, right? That's what that fund is actually for. We do have clauses that we can use money in that fund for special purposes, unforeseen purposes. We've done that in the past. And so that's why when we talk about that, it would take some work, meaning we would have to kind of justify it, bring that justification to the congregation, bring it to a congregational vote, all of that, right? You can't just do that at this point in time. So again, I really want to stress, we're not doing that. We're just trying to find different ideas on how to help us kind of fix this situation that's upon us right now.
This is Sue Bork. I'm curious if we've had any hits for renters?
I've been out for a while, so I don't know the answer to that question. I know we've got it out on Facebook. I don't think anybody has necessarily called. I can go on more. We have a slide to talk about the rent, so I can maybe go a little bit more in detail on that then, Sue. But any other questions or comments?
Dara Sitlow, would our expenses increase once we have a permanent pastor?
Once we have would our expenses increase if we had a permanent renter? Is that what you said? Pastor. Oh, so it's a great question, Dar, and the answer is right now we're trying as best as we can to keep that at a net neutral to start. There's a page that's in that packet that kind of talks about what that looks like. What we can afford is a pastor with like 0 years of experience, right? And then as that pastor garners their second year of experience and their third year of experience, then it's going to come with increases, right? Nobody wants to go to work for a place that, you know, you're not getting at least basic wage increases. So that's kind of modeled out on that. And so I tell you that, yes, right now we're trying our best to be in a position that if we can bring in a first-year pastor, that it comes in at a net neutral. That's going to be really challenging because if they're married, then we have to maybe pay for insurance for the whole family with the kids, so then that gets to be a little variant. If they're single, then that's definitely something that, you know, would be a benefit, a financial benefit to the church. Yeah.
That being said, we also are not really in a position where we'll be able to be picky about who we pick either, because if somebody comes, it may be the first one or first and last one for maybe another year, because the pool is so small right now.
Okay. Any other questions with this? Again, not a vote, just putting ideas out there is all it is. Okay. Can we go to the next slide?
How many families do we have in our congregation?
I do not have an answer to that. I'm sorry. That would be, Betty, do you know by any chance? We could get that. That's a great question, and it was one that was asked at the other meeting, and I failed to have the answer to you right now, so apologize.
Yeah, giving units, that's one thing we need to check into.
Yes.
And come up with that figure.
I think we do have a lot of congregational members who are not active, you know, in the church. So even going and counting the number of family units, you know, for the church, we're going to come up with a lot of very inactive people. So I don't know. I don't know how to come up with the good answer for that, you know. We could do the giving, you know, the giving units, how many people. And I want to say, in sending out statements, normally I send out about 70-some statements.
Okay.
For people who have given something, yeah.
So there you go. So there, roughly 70 members that are giving on some type of a consistent basis.
Or given something.
Yep.
Yep.
Any other questions? Sorry. Okay. So basement. So there were some good questions already on the basement. I'm not going to cover the information on the left-hand side. We kind of already talked about that a little bit there. But moving forward, right? Looking for a new renter. We'll have to, as we do this as a congregation, we're probably going to have some more expenses than we normally had. So to put it very blunt, SCC was a very good, easy renter, right? They paid on time. They kind of took care of the basement. We didn't have to do anything. They provided a contract that we read through, that we signed. They were great. Again, can't be more grateful enough to have that opportunity. But moving forward, you know, if we have a renter, whomever that may be, we're going to need to manage that, probably a little bit more than we have in the past, right? So we're going to have some type of a committee. We're going to have to figure out what that looks like to do that, right? Because possibly we're going to have to be on call, right? If something goes wrong, who's going to be around to fix it, right? Another thing is, what happens if the rent isn't paid on time, and who's going to be, going out, knocking on the door and asking them to pay more, to pay up and things like that. We're probably going to have to at some point in time, garner some level of legal support. One to write up a contract, another to help us through any of the challenging times that maybe we have with a renter, things like that. And then also, advertising. Now, we're doing that right now on social media. We have it on our Facebook page. I would tell you that we don't have a contract yet, but we would like to maybe wait until we get some interest before we get there, right? And then see where we can go. People have asked about what the space could be used for. Right now, at this point in time, I think it could be used for anything that would be, in my mind, commercial, right? So if you wanted to run an insurance agency out of there or whatever the case would be, you could do that. Another daycare would be great if we wanted to run a daycare into there. One of the challenges I know that that SCC had with that space is that we really didn't have a compliant kitchen to use, right? We don't have, the kitchen upstairs isn't compliant because it's not vented. We have some issues there. In the downstairs, there was really no kitchen that we had down there. So, those were some challenges that the school district faced with that. So, it may be or may not be seemed optimal to continue to run a daycare. Some members of our congregation have brought up maybe we should run a Trinity daycare out of there. To which I said, we still have the same issues that we need to do, right? First of all, we have to staff it, and we have to make sure that whatever we're charging, that we can pay staff, and then also ensure that we're making additional $1,600, let's just call it a month, on top of paying all the expenses. And then, again, we're going to have a management plan in place. We're going to have again, legal support in place. So things like that, we need to make sure we take into consideration, because these are going to be costs that we'll have to take over and above. So, $1,600, and I don't even know where to begin, but $1,600 could quickly turn into we need $3,000 a month or something like that, right, to actually garner that revenue that we're looking for. One other question that I would say, somebody asked, when we rent the basement out, does that jeopardize our nonprofit status? And so I did look into that. The answer is no, as long as we keep it kind of the same percentage of our total income. So right now, if that was $20,000 in the past, we are somewhere around $210,000, and that would not be seen as something that would jeopardize our tax status, like that percentage of our income. If it got up to be 40%, 50%, then we might have to look at how we're doing our taxes differently. So, as it comes to basement space, I don't know, is there questions or comments? We kind of want to just take this time to bring this topic up in front of the congregation, get people to understand where we're at. I think maybe if I were to summarize it, we're trying to move forward with this, but it's going to have its challenges, and ones that we're going to need to move on. And so I think it'd be a great situation if we could find a renter, but we're going to have to move fast as far as preparing for that if we indeed do have somebody that's interested.
Sue Frank, is there possibility of having 2 renters down there where we could split the space, depending on what they wanted to do with it?
Yeah, so the question was, could we split the space? I think because of the restroom situation down there, that could be a bit of a challenge. Probably need to rent the space out to one person. Any other questions? Comments?
Sharon Johnson. I'm just listening today with people when we had coffee, how I have so much left over from my mom and my family, and it seems to me like the thrift stores are, doing really well. Could something like a volunteer, our Trinity members, work the store, and whatever was made is the income?
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
So the comment was, could we use the space in the lower level to be a thrift store of some sort where Trinity members manage that? And I think, that is definitely an opportunity, one that we could look into. I mean, that's a very good idea. We would just need to make sure that we could garner the support to manage that, right? And the hours to do that. And if Trinity members, we can't get enough volunteers, then it comes like, okay, do we want to pay somebody to manage that store type of thing? So, but yeah, definitely, most definitely an idea we could pursue. Any other comments? Oh.
Sue Bork. It has been forever since I've been in the basement. Is it open that we could go down there and have the ability to have a visual on it again so that then we can promote that space to others?
Yeah. Yes, by all means. So the question by Sue is, can we walk down and see the basement? I think, Daryl, can you get them into the basement? We can give you that opportunity today, if you would like. Yep, most definitely. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So I think we're good there. If we want to move to the next one, Daryl. And I believe, as Daryl works to bring that up, I think we're at the, future of Trinity Lutheran Church. So again, kind of wanted to take this time to kind of talk through a little bit of where we're at from a calling perspective. Again, I will call your attention to this piece of paper that was in those packets that talks about what it would be to bring on a new pastor in 2025, and then what the expenses would be roughly as they garnered a year of experience for 2026, right? So this kind of just gives everybody an idea of what that looks like. But as we have gone, started and to go through this process and are in this process, it's been faced with a little bit of challenges, but challenges that other congregations are having too. So this is not a Trinity-specific situation that we're in at this point in time. Just a general lay of the land from a calling perspective. The candidate pool is small for those first year pastors coming out of the seminary, right? So it's not very large, though those numbers are dwindling. And you couple that with the idea that there are other congregations that are in the same position as Trinity right now, right? So the demand for, the amount of congregations in the call process is high or higher. And so those 2 points right there have made it a little bit of a challenge to start getting candidates brought in at this point in time. So that's kind of what we're up against here. And I believe Mindy Ramberg was talking to Pastor Randy Olson about it. He had just recently touched base with her probably 2-3 weeks ago, and was letting her know that possibly towards the fall we could see some more candidates come in. So keep the positive attitude up and keep the good work moving forward. So the message here to to the congregation is that, work is being done. We're not sitting on our hands on this one. It's going a little slower than maybe we would like. But as we do that and we look at, costs that we have, right, what it takes to bring in a new pastor, another option we have is looking to and I use the word partner, and it is not partner, but to partner with another congregation for a pastor, to have their services with ours. What was that, Joe? Share ministries. Thank you very much. To share ministries with our congregation. I don't know if people here know this, but today we have our confirmation classes shared with Gethsemane, and so for the first semester of the year, maybe I'll get this wrong, but the first semester of the year, our kids go over to Gethsemane and go through confirmation classes in Gethsemane. And then the second semester of the year, the Gethsemane kids come here, and the confirmation classes are held here. And they're held by both pastors at the same time. So they're working both of those. So we already have some, already set up relationships to support some of these activities that we're doing with our youth and the growth there. So it could be that we could reach out and have some conversations with the individuals at Gethsemane and see if there's any interest in doing something like that. I don't know if there are any comments on that or any other options, but we wanted just to make sure that we're bringing this to the forefront with the congregation. So.
Marty Peterson, I've got friends up in the Amory area that you have Deronda Church that goes with Little Falls and also another congregation. They're together, all three of them, and they go services one time at Deronda, one time at Little Falls, and then the other church, and back and forth. And I have another one that shares a pastor their church does with Balsam Lutheran. And that pastor does services at both churches each Sunday.
Each Sunday, right.
So it's being done because the small rural churches are struggling. And are there any in this area, immediate vicinity, that we could partner that way?
It's definitely something that we can pursue. There's no doubt about it. I mean, our I don't know if it's really a challenge, but our situation here is that we have a Lutheran church in Roberts, we have one here in Hammond, and we have two in Baldwin. So you just, when you're looking to grow your congregations, there's a lot of choices in a very small area type of thing, right? Brian?
I was just going to make a comment. I know we have the relationship with Gethsemane, but it would also be kind of nice to look at, the Lutheran Church in Roberts as the St. Croix Central kind of community. That's, just kind of my opinion there. But, we have the relationship already. I get it, but
No, so Brian's comment was, it'd be nice if this is something we want to explore, to have a conversation with the Lutheran Church in Roberts, right? For obvious reasons. It's St. Croix Central, it's the kids in the same school district growing, their spiritual lives together. So definitely something that we would want to explore too if we went down that path. I would not, I use Gethsemane as an example because we're working with them right now, but I think it would behoove us to not have that conversation with Roberts also.
Is the Synod looking into that also, like sharing pastors?
It's a great question. So the question is the Synod looking into us sharing pastors? How it's been explained to me is the Synod wouldn't really get involved until we would find a congregation that was interested in doing that. So it's kind of on Trinity's area of response, our responsibility to go out and have some conversations, right? Maybe council to council, conversations to find out if there is interest. And then if there was, what structure we might want to use with that, right? Like dual services on Sunday and that. And then if we got to that point where we thought that there was a viable solution there, or situation there, then we would go back to the synod and explain to them what our desires would be at that point in time. But right now, the responsibility is on Trinity to go out there to have conversations, and that's not right, wrong, or otherwise, right? Like, we wouldn't be going against anything by doing that.
The one thing that where I'm thinking of is like come July 1st, like our Catholic church. Now, they're all changing. They were with River Falls right now. And on July 1st, they're going to Glenwood and Wilson. So, I mean, the Senate is a lot different than two churches. That's what I'm bringing up, is like something.
Yeah, right. If I understood you correctly, it says, like, you know, the Catholic Church here in town is kind of changing who they do their shared services with, right? And I don't know, I can't speak for the Catholic Church, but I'm sure that it's probably something very similar. And I think the synods are flexible. They want us to survive. They want us to move forward. And so they'll be here to support us in the way that we deem is best for the health of our congregation. So that's how I would leave that.
And just to speak a word of encouragement, the synod is open to creativity. Just because I do pulpit supply with many churches that are experiencing very similar situations as Trinity. And there's a lot of individuals that are coming together to support you guys, whether it's Trinity or the neighboring congregations. So feel free to get creative. And as Lance is saying, the synod won't step in until you guys have those conversations, because you are an individual community, and that's your autonomy, and that's respect out of that. So, but yeah, there's always creativity invited.
So, just as an interest, this is not a vote, but like, is there anybody that's radically opposed to like looking for shared services? Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions or comments with this? All right, so, there's always one.
There's always one. It's got to be me. There aren't too many in this room that were here when we started 50-some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We were a shared church at that time. We shared with Roberts.
Okay.
We were both built at the same time, and we had one pastor between us. And it didn't take maybe, a year or two before there were a lot of feelings and people left because they felt, they're doing more at that church than he's doing here. We're not getting our money's worth because he's vice versa. Between the two churches, it got to be a problem. And which is why we more or less split. So, but I'm thinking, I don't know other than about 3 of us that were here to see that, and how no matter what you do, you're going to offend somebody.
Right.
I'm not leaving. I've been here forever. You're not getting rid of me.
Oh, goody.
But that's your problem. But like I say, we saw it, and I hate to see it again, that you say, okay, we're going to do this. And then some of your good members here say, well, I don't like that pastor. I'll go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have choices.
Right. Yes, we do. Most definitely.
You know, we've got small communities There's some that'll go to Woodville, some that'll go to Rush River, south of us, over back to Peace, you know? So I think real hard, or try real hard to stay on your own. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up to that. I was just going to say, you could have that same argument when a new pastor comes in. If you don't like the new pastor, you're going to have people leave at the same time. So I get what you're saying, and that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, it's most definitely. I mean, I think that what I've heard here is enough to say that the council can maybe go have some conversations. Again, we can't do anything without bringing it forward to the congregation, right? So it wouldn't be like, surprise, here's what we're doing. But we can definitely go have some conversations and maybe bring some different options back to the congregation to talk through, and then have some of those candid conversations like that and be like, here's where we're at type of thing. But it's a very good, your summary and your comments and your historical knowledge is awesome. So thanks for bringing that forward.
Also, just on the same subject, like when is there any, like, we don't have kids in the school district. Is there any problems with the kids, with people with the kids that are going to confirmation here and then going to Baldwin also?
I would have to look to a parent that's maybe been experiencing that. So, Ms. Newsbaum, did you experience anything like that, or?
Is there any fighting? Because back when I know Dar and Mike went to bowl this year, and there was problems back then. But that was not in every class.
Okay, so,
I was just going to say that, so our daughter Emmy does have friends that go over there. From a standpoint of a youth group, partnering with them, I think, would be amazing, just because they do have a very, very solid youth group, and they do many service trips throughout the year. They have that down. So if we were to join with them, partner with them in some way, I do think it would be very beneficial for our youth program. Roberts.
I'm just kind of curious, when two churches combine, or maybe previously for those that were here, do we stay Trinity and the other church stays what they are and we continue doing? Trinity does so much for our community and so much for the school district, and that's something that's why we're here. Like, we love that, and that's why when we moved here 10 years ago, that's what drew us here. And how does that work when you share?
yeah. So,
it's not a merge, right?
right, correct. We would still operate as Trinity Lutheran Church, we would still operate. So the question was, if we would do a shared service, what happens to the congregation? Are we kind of like blend together with one name and things like that? The fact of the matter is, no, we would still remain Trinity Lutheran Church. It's just that our pastoral services are shared back and forth. Now, maybe we kind of blend that with confirmation together. But that's kind of where it begins and ends. Trinity would still be here to service the Hammond area, and then, we would still have our own church council, and we would still operate as our individual unit. Yes, we would have to work out salaries, right? But we would probably continue with our own administrative support staff, right? And we would do all that. But yes, it's the pastor's salary that we would be working with, yeah.
But it also would give us the opportunity to grow both congregations together, though, because if you think about it, if having a full-time or three-quarter-time pastor is something that we can't afford on our own, if we did partner with another congregation, maybe we can't afford to bring on a whole nother full pastor, but between the two congregations, maybe we could bring on a part-time youth pastor, or, something like that, where we could share those responsibilities between two pastors to make it easier on both of them. But they both have different responsibilities, and maybe one's just a half-time.
Great comments, great questions. Anything else with this?
At the last meeting we had, Pastor Julie was here, and on this topic, she was very clear about that the option was we can very much keep our own identity as Trinity Lutheran and Hammond, supporting Hammond, yet share with, whether it's Gethsemane or Cross or whoever, but, only choose the ministries that we want or to share and keep the rest in-house here. And she was very clear about that, and that it's fairly easy to do. And she also did mention, don't sit back, be very forward on the things you want to keep here. Don't play second fiddle because we're the ones that are wanting to share, but just, keep our own identity.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Let's see, if we go down to the last slide. So, kind of on the topic of, being here for Hammond, in Hammond, for Hammond, we have a great opportunity, obviously, every August to promote Trinity at Heartland Days. And so there's a parade on Sunday. And in the past, Trinity has participated. I'm going to say they've used a float, but we've had a presence in the parade, whether it's people walking and holding a banner, whatever the case is. And we just thought that as long as we're here talking about all these other topics, we could bring this up and say, also, if there's interest from anybody here in the attendance, if you are interested in helping to coordinate some type of a float or a presence in the parade, that would be great. That we would really encourage or ask for anybody to step up to come and talk to any of the council members, and we can kind of move forward with there. I think we had talked about in the last call that we had, or the last meeting that was on the 16th, I believe we identified that we had a banner that could be used, that we could just carry it with members of Trinity walking in the parade with the banner, things like that. So it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just something something simple, just to keep in the forefront of everybody's minds that we are here, right, and we are supporting this community. So Trinity does a good job with that, and it's something that we should hang our hats on, and we just want to make sure that we continue those efforts as we move forward.
We are also looking for help on Friday night of Heartland Days for the Kids Carnival down there, the Holiday Angels. We did that last year, just in lieu of having the Sunday event here. So we had 10 volunteers come down, and I think it's 5:30 to 7, maybe?
Something like that, yes.
Yep. And then we had a great turnout last year, but there is a sign-up sheet out there. So it'd be Friday night, August 8th, from 5:30 to 7, down at the Lions Heartland Park, south of town by the pull track. And you just help with simple kids' games. You're just working the games. So anybody that wants to sign up, it's out there. Thank you.
So that was the question we had over here, was when is Hammond Heartland Days?
It is always the second full weekend of August. That's the best I can tell you, Marty. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I have kept you around long enough on this beautiful Sunday. And I think if you guys have any other comments or questions, let us know. I think, from a council perspective, we kind of have some good information that we were able to take away from this, so we might be able to have some direction as far as having conversations about various topics and kind of moving forward with things. So we really appreciate this. If you have any suggestions, if you have any further questions as we move through this year, please be open and ask, right? We'll try to make ourselves as transparent as possible. We're looking to maybe change up the information we share in the back of the bulletin a little bit to maybe show something a little bit different, and try to keep everybody up to date with where we are with our finances, because we're trying very hard not to make this a surprise, and we will go on from there. All right, thank you, everybody.
Go in peace and let the Holy Spirit live.
Oh, I'm sorry. If people wanted to go down to the basement, Daryl can open